Welcome to Get Moving TV. I'm Dr. Chris Landon and I serve as your host. Here in Ventura County, we had a set of unusual events some 10, 15 years ago where we developed the Vivometrics Life Shirt. We were able to, every breath you take, every move you make, we were watching you, ended up on the International Space Station. And then 2008 occurred and the economy fell apart. But I've kept in with telemedicine throughout since 1969 when we moved a chest x-ray 2 kilobytes at a time from Alaska to Stanford. So I've kept in there. Now I'm a digital health opinion leader for some companies. So it lets me go to conferences. And at one of those conferences, I had the incredibly thrilling event of meeting one of the best salespeople I've ever known, Neil Friedman, who could also sell a refrigerator to an Eskimo, and thank goodness he wants to sell us health. And where does health, what is your device and how can you put health into the palm of my hand? What?
Well, I think we have to take a few steps back and understand how this whole phenomenon has happened and this disruptive technology, and it was really started by Fitbit. And they really created what we call today the consumerization of healthcare. And that's an awareness by the consumer of their vitals, and also the consumer has wanted to take control and decide who and what they want to give to who. And that's really what has happened, and it has matured considerably to the point of where today, for example, we have a device like this that in 20 seconds does an EKG, respiration, heart rate, blood oxygen, systolic blood pressure, and rate pressure product.
And do we appear from a Star Trek, that sounds like the tricorder.
Well, it's been nicknamed the tricorder, so you're right on the money, and the press has called it that. But what happens is that this is really an educational tool, and all of our devices have really become educational tools. And when I interact with our customers, it's incredible to hear what they've learned from these devices and how they're taking these devices, finding out how to increase, essentially extend their life, essentially, and know more about themselves, and do the research to find out about themselves and how they can extend their lives. So this, consumerization has really changed healthcare, and now we're seeing it within the medical community. I started in this business 5 years ago, and initially when I got involved in it, nobody wanted to talk to me. Today, everybody is clamoring to get into this technology because telehealth, as you mentioned, which goes all the way back to the 60s, has finally come about where there's a recognition that in order to potentially take care of everybody in our country, we're going to need telehealth. Because so many people are in rural communities, for example, and can't get to a doctor. Devices like this offer the ability to an individual to take their metrics, to go on some HIPAA-compliant telehealth site, speak to a doctor who may be 200 miles away. This doctor then looks at their metrics using the metrics that are achieved from a device like this and decides whether they can be taken care of where they are or they have to be moved to a facility.
Well, one of the things I tell my patients is, I get a set of vital signs. Boy, that's 15 seconds. I know what your weight is for 15 seconds and your heart rate and blood pressure and your oximetry and so forth. And then there's the rest of your life. And so I'll send them home with the O2 Vibe, which you're wearing on your wrist there. Right. Because I'll say, look, if I come over to your house and I look in your window at night to see how you're doing, you call the police. I have to wear that stupid ankle bracelet again. I can't go around to elementary schools. So it really lets you into their lives, but with privacy too. And I think that's been our concern with some of the elderly. Correct. We don't want to have a video camera in. I don't think we want to know what grandma and grandpa are doing sometimes, but we worry about them. We want to know if they've fallen. We want to know if they're have pneumonia coming. So are there any, a device is one thing, but is it hooked up to anything that helps predict before it happens?
That's a great question because there's an abundance of data today. And one of the things that's stopping this technology, or the barrier you might say, one of the complaints of physicians is there's too much data. So what we've incorporated into our system is a index which is called the Rossman Index, which we have coined the Personal Wellness Index. And this is an algorithm that actually was created 10 years ago, which is FDA approved today. And through a combination of taking the metrics on this device and answering 14 questions on our app, a patient gets a score of their health and gets a very nice dashboard of it. But their provider now has the opportunity to actually see their dashboard, but also see any change within 14 different areas within their body, and can actually see a trend in their health before it happens. So with this index, we now can really determine what is going on with somebody ahead of time and potentially, again, mitigate that problem at home, keeping them out of the hospital. The key today is trying to take care of people at home, not to bring them into a hospital environment.
Yeah, and something I think with the Rossman Index, it started out was grandma got her heart valve replaced,
Exactly, right.
and then ended up dying. And the boys are going, how could you, that's my grandma. What happened? And they asked to look at the hospital records, and the hospital goes, oh, you're going to sue us. They go, no, we just want to know why couldn't you tell yourself that grandma went home too early, that something was going on. And I think part of it, they can't, because we had one of the brothers here at UC Santa Barbara, was just finishing half their meals, that she didn't finish all of her meals. And that's almost more important than anything a doctor or nurse can come up with vital signs. So.
She actually died of dehydration. And because so often, unfortunately, in a hospital environment, the nurse who's watching you in the beginning is not the nurse who's watching you at the end. So we need some form of continuity in assessing that person's health. And that's what the Rossman Index gives to that nurse when she's in that room.
And on the way home, too.
Yes.
So that we have so many, the opioid problems with the elderly. It doesn't take much to knock you out. I take care of people recovering from pneumonia, and they're pushed out of the hospital faster, pushed home on oxygen, pushed home on IV antibiotics. Mm-hmm. So you have a number of devices here to talk a little bit about the O2 Vibe. What Vibe? What are you playing?
Okay.
Vibraphone? Or?
Well, the O2 Vibe is a terrific little device, and there's an awareness that's happening. You know, I believe that words become hot. Okay, and in the last 10 years, you know, we started, of course, with obesity, and then we had diabetes and metabolic syndrome, and now the hot word that we're all hearing is sleep apnea. And there's become an awareness now that sleep apnea is an affliction that affects a lot of people, and the majority of people don't even know they have sleep apnea. This particular device is made to measure your blood oxygen, which is one of the causes of sleep apnea, so that you can set a threshold on your app. Let's say we set a threshold of 90% blood oxygen. You're sleeping, and while you're sleeping, your blood oxygen drops below 90%. And what it does is it vibrates. And by vibrating, it gets us to move and inhale oxygen. And it's a very, very simple method, but yet a method to help you inhale and take in oxygen when your oxygen drops below. Now, the other incredible thing that has happened here, and it all happened organically, was that we have people that have COPD, pulmonary fibrosis, cystic fibrosis using this device because you can adjust the level of the SpO2. So for example, somebody with COPD could drop the level on their app to 88%. It vibrates. They know when they need some oxygen. We have a cute story on our website of a golfer who was playing actually with this device on his hand, and it vibrated. And he took a hit of oxygen, and he writes that he finished 9 holes.
Well, and the other thing with the CPAP, the pressure into the nose, 6 out of 10 people put it back in their drawer. They don't want to do that. And I have patients who go, okay, well, it vibrates. Now I know to turn or play my game on my computer. I've used the watch, and along with it looks like you and I are wed there. You have a ring there as well.
Well, this is the next technology that's coming. And this technology essentially will be doing the same thing as the O2 Vibe, but will give you the ability also to monitor your exercise at the same time. So again, we're checking your blood oxygen, your pulmonary status, and this will be the next device on the marketplace.
Well, I modified myself, and we have screenshots I guess I could share, where my obstructive desaturation index was not in a good range, and then I got a little cold. It got worse. I go, I'm near death here. That's not good. So I got my 6 pillows out, and suddenly I'm back in a normal range. So it really helped me to rearrange my own life.
You know, I hear stories from people that wear the O2 Vibe that are just wanting to figure out what is causing these drops in their blood oxygen, So they actually have cameras in their room where they're actually timing their sleep against the time on the device and figuring out how they're laying and adjusting accordingly so that they won't have the problem.
Well, just in the remaining couple of minutes here, we have an orb from War of the Worlds.
Exactly. This is a new development. This is not on the marketplace yet, but I think it's going to be revolutionary. This uses ultra-wideband radar. And what will happen with this device is you'll put it at your bedside, next to your bed. It will, if there's an individual in bed, it will actually take all the metrics of that individual as they're in bed. So that for people that unfortunately have some afflictions and stuff that don't have the opportunity to be properly monitored, this will really help. And additionally, if you fall out of bed, it will notify somebody. And it also has a built-in SIM card so that we will be able to talk back and forth and to make sure you're okay.
I've dealt with that technology before with, actually it's an Israeli technology, and we were able to differentiate two different people in bed, and it would only take the vital signs on one.
It targets that one.
Yeah, so
right.
It was really to say, is that a rat coming into the tent or an enemy soldier?
Right.
And so we were able to stretch that out. So it's just very pleasurable to see it come back, because they sucked it back out.
It's interesting, and it's so interesting what you're saying. So many technologies that we've all played with early in our careers, and I think that Chris and I have shared that same situation, tend to come back 10 or 20 years later. And this, as Chris is mentioning, is an old technology.
Yeah. Well done. Well, Neil, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
We'll make certain that people can contact Body Metrics.
Thanks.
And have their health in the palm of their hand.
Thank you, Chris.
So we'll be right back.